Superman 64. Released in 1999 and was soon known as being one of the worst video games ever made for a variety of reasons, including its bad graphics, the bad controls, and general gameplay issues such as glitches, things clipping into each other, and poor enemy AI. The game received negative reviews from many websites and critics, and also got many awards for being the worst game of 1999, the worst superhero game, and the list goes on. E.T. A game that was so bad that it fueled the crash of 1983. If you don't know what the crash of 1983 was, well, it was a time when the video game industry lost about 97% of their revenue and caused many companies to go bankrupt. The market recovered a few years later, but people had not forgotten the disastrous game known as E.T. The reason for the game's bad reputation is because of the game's bad graphics, bad gameplay, and bad story. And because of the game's bad reputation, 3.5 million of the 4 million copies that were made were sent back. A few years later, the unsold cartridges were supposedly buried at a landfill site and never spoken of again. Sonic 2006 was considered one of, if not the worst, Sonic game ever made. People criticised the game for its long and frequent loading screens, its camera that refused to behave itself, frequent glitches, and poor controls. The game received many negative reviews and also won some awards, such as one of the most disappointing games of the decade and the video game franchise that lost its way the most. Aquaman Battle for Atlantis. Yet another low-rated comic-based game, and also known as one of the worst games of all time by the hosts of the show X-Play. The low ratings in this game were mostly due to the game's bad graphics, lack of challenge, and a variety of other problems like bad animation, and lack of effort in general. If we've learned anything from this list so far, it's that games based on comic books don't seem to have a great success rate. PacMan Atari. Considered by many to be the worst port of all time. It was called this because of the fact that the Atari 2600 was limited at the time, and this caused the game to be simplified and stripped down, thus lowering the quality of the game. Some of the effects of this were the simplified graphics, the modified maze layout, and the ghosts that flickered to only show one on the screen at a time. In the end, the game actually ended up selling 7 million copies, but unfortunately, most of those 7 million people were unsatisfied with their purchase. Ride to Hell Retribution was widely considered one of the worst games of all time and removed from Steam a while after release because of this very reason. The game was received so poorly because of many reasons, including bad storytelling, bad graphics, offensive content, terrible gameplay, frequent glitches, and bad animation. Ride to Hell also, as you may have guessed, won an award on GiantBomb.com for being the worst game of 2013. Custers Revenge, made in 1982 and torn down not too long after. This game was badly received due to its controversial adult nature and bad quality, but mostly the reason for this game's removal was because of the aim of the game, to guide a questionable looking man through various obstacles so that he can have sex with the Native American woman on the other side. What the fuck? Shaq Fu, one of the only games on this list that wasn't terribly received, but still remains one of the worst games of all time. The problem in this game doesn't lie in the gameplay, but in the bad story, low difficulty, the small in-game sprites, and most importantly the fact that Shaquille O'Neal is the main character. And I kind of understand this because when you think about it, why is there a basketball player running around kung fuing people to death when he should be off actually playing basketball? Big Rigs Over the Road Racing. Now I'm sure that most of you have heard of this tragedy of a video game. The game was originally intended to be some sort of racing game where the player delivers illegal cargo and avoids the police. but in reality the game turned out to be completely unfinished and fully broken. This is because the game suffers from many issues such as no collision detection, no music, bad sound, terrible controls, terrible graphics, brain dead AI, no physics, unlimited reversing speed, no map boundaries, about 10 ways to crash the game, and the list goes on. The game was known by many to be one of the worst games ever made, if not the worst game ever made, and also got removed from Steam a while back for being so awful. Elf Bowling 1 and 2, both featured on this list for the same reason: bad graphical design, audio and controls. By the way, if you're wondering what the game is, well, I'm pretty sure from the title you can guess that it's a game where you go bowling, but instead of pins, it's elves. That's it for this list, guys. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!